What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you like this video. This is your Queen Sugar review, season 3 finale. Okay, so am I the only one? The finale was an hour and a half. But am I the only one whose DVR cut off after an hour? Cause last night, by the time I realized that it didn't get the last 30 minutes, it was over. And so I had to wait and tape it again at like 2:30 this morning, come home from work, because I started back at work, and start taping it again. So and watch it again. Anyway, so I get that last 30 minutes. So anyway, I was trying to get it to y'all last night, but that's why it ain't happening. But this was the season finale, and I feel like, again, a good finale closes up major storylines but gives you some back doors to some other ones. And I think they did a really good job of giving us enough to come back next season. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw. So we started the episode off, we saw Ralph Angel going into the jail. And I think it was supposed to make people think that Ralph Angel got in trouble or something. But I felt like that's why he was there. I said, okay, he's there. I didn't think he was there to talk to the guys. And I thought maybe he was there to take care of some business for his parole hearing, not parole hearing, but because he's trying to get off of probation. I always say parole when I mean probation and vice versa, but probation. But anyway, that's what it was. He was going and doing like a talk, and he was talking to the guys, and he was, letting them know, look, it ain't easy on the outside. When I first got out, I was still institutionalized, and there was many days where I just didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't know how to get back in, and, he said, had it not been for my family there for me, I don't know what would have happened. He said, and I understand that a lot of y'all don't have that same family system that I had. He was like, but I'm here. Y'all can always call me. Y'all can always lean on me. And he said, we got to lean on each other. We got to be there for each other. And I was like, you better go ahead, Ralph Angel. And then he was saying that it wasn't until his father left him the land that he didn't have a purpose. He said, but now that he has his father's land, he has a purpose. And he was saying how he's even been able to employ other convicts like himself and teach them about the land and teach them how to, till the soil. And he said putting his hands, you could hear him describing his hands in the earth and in that soil, and it was just a really great scene. And then you see him afterwards talking to his parole officer, and his parole officer saying, look, your early parole has been approved. So basically, Ralph Angel's about to come up off of papers. He's going to be good. No more parole officer knocking on his door whenever he feel like it. And he's had a pretty decent parole officer. I think in the beginning, the guy was kind of hard on him because I think, in the beginning, he was like, what you trying to do? Like, you going to end up back in jail. But I think once the land came into place, I do think he saw some growth in Ralph Angel, and he saw, a different side of Ralph Angel. And I think I said this before, I love how they have done his character for the TV show, because his character in the book, if any of y'all have actually read the book Queen Sugar, which was a good book, but Ava DuVernay actually adopted the book for TV, and she did a great job of making Ralph Angel redeemable. In the first episode, we saw him robbing a bank with Blue right across the street at the playground where he left him by himself. So in the beginning, you were like, oh, that bullshit. But over the 3 seasons, you've definitely seen him grow, and not perfect. He ain't that, but certainly have grown and evolved. And then we see him leaving, and it's just that vision of him standing in the parking lot of the jail talking to his parole officer, watching inmates being brought in, and these were actually women he actually saw being brought in, and it just shows you that contrast. So it was great. I didn't mean to go off like that, but it was good. Then we see Micah. Micah has put his rally together, y'all. He's got the whole community coming through to help him out. Everybody is really proud of him. They're at a school making signs and posters, and Micah has a whole little schedule set up. And he was talking to Nova, and he was saying, none of my friends came. And he said, I know that everybody's been laying low because of the incident, but I thought for something like this, we could all come together. And Nova was like, look, you just got to stay focused and you got to remember what you're doing and why you're here. And people are either going to come or they're not. And he said, well, what if nobody shows up? She said, then, the show must go on. She said, but remember, look around you. You did this. You put this together. You did this. So regardless of how it turns out, know that you put forth that effort. And so it was time for him to let the people know what time they were going to meet for the rally and give them the schedule of events and everything. And he's nervous, so he's up there trying to talk, and he's mumbling, and he's got his head down, and he's not speaking out, and he's not enunciating. And Nova and Charlie are on the stage. Everybody else is sort of in the audience. Vi and Hollywood, they're sort of in the audience and stuff. And people are like, what? What's the boy saying? What? Tell him he got to speak up. Nova, tell him to speak up. They let him know they couldn't hear him. They let him know, look, we don't hear what you're trying to tell us. We know you're trying to talk to us, but nobody can understand you. And Charlie came up and started speaking, and she was enunciating her voice, and then she started going off on her own thing. Remember why we're here, and we got to let them know we're here to fight. And she didn't intentionally mean to take over, but in all fairness to Charlie, I think they gave him enough time to get it together. I understand he was nervous. And I don't know what would have been better. Would it have been better for her to go up there like a mommy and chastise him and be like, speak up. Boy, you better speak up. Or do what she did. I don't know which one would have been better. However, they couldn't hear him and they told him. And he didn't, and I know he was nervous. I'm not getting on him. But I just don't think that, and they didn't make a big deal about it. You could see he sort of backed off, and you could see his face was a little, you could tell he was a little irritated. And Nova even kind of gave him a look or whatever. But I think Nova understood too, right now it's not, yes, you did this and it's important that people know that you're the person in charge. But at the same time, people need to hear what's going on and people need to know what they need to do. But anyway, so it was a really good scene to see that the community had come together and the community was ready to, they ready to do this, and they're all standing behind Micah. You know what I mean? And you could tell the community was all gung ho and ready for Micah to speak. So, and just in full disclosure, this episode made me cry twice. And James Caldwell, I know it had your ass crying too. Then we see Charlie with Roberto. Is that his name, y'all? I don't want to make up a name. I think his name is Roberto. But we see them. They're having a little date night. And Charlie is having so much fun. She's laughing. And, they are just having so much fun. I'm just so happy for Charlie. She's just in a really good place. And this guy, it's just really good for her, And they have a moment, they get to kissing and everything, Really good scene. Something that's very important. It's important to the storyline, but it's also very important to next season. Nova let her friend read her book. And her friend said, are you sure about this? And, Nova was like, well, what do you mean? It's my story. And her friend was like, oh, no, it's not. This is everybody's story. She said, you need to at least let them know. You need to basically, you need to give them a heads up. She said, because what you put in here, you could see the urgency and the alarm on her friend's face. Her friend was like, it's good. It's great. It's a great book, well written. But you need to be very careful and make sure that you really, really mean this before you put this out there, because you're playing with fire. And Nova was like, everybody keeps telling me I need to find my voice and I need to do this and do that. Well, that's what I've done. And again, Nova, you missing the point. They're not telling you to tell everybody else's story. They're telling you to tell your story. And you seem to think that your story, by extension, includes everybody else because you are there. No. If I were to write an autobiography, yes, me writing my autobiography means that other people will be involved because there were other people involved in my life. However, some stories where you were just a witness to, they're not your stories to tell. And I think that's what Vi was trying to explain to you with the suicide piece. Yes, that was your father, and by extension, it was your story, quote unquote, but it really wasn't your story to tell, especially since your father wasn't there to defend himself one way or the other. Now, I said this in my previous videos. I don't agree with the fact that, because I think, especially in the black community, we need to speak more on mental health. So I don't agree with hiding it for the purposes of we don't want to speak of mental health. I'm just saying, who's to say Prosper got the story right? You're taking a story based on what Mr. Prosper told you. And as much as I love and respect Mr. Prosper, who's to say he got the story right? Who's to say he talking about the right person? Prosper a little up there. Anyway, so we'll see later on in the episode how that goes. But her friend was really trying to let her know you need to be very careful. So then we get to the rally. This was the first time this episode made me cry. So they're at the rally, and they had the council member speak, and she's like la 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 speaking up and everything. And then Micah gets up to speak, and again he's nervous, and he's got a prepared little speech, and he's mumbling, and Kiki shows up. And remember, him and Kiki ain't really been rocking too every time I hear Kiki, I think of damn Drake now. But they hadn't even really been rocking too good after the whole situation went down with the fire. But Kiki showed up, and she's got on one of the shirts, it says "We Grow Food," talking about the farmers. And Micah's losing them, you know what I mean? And again, the crowd is being very supportive. They're like, take your time. It's good. It's okay. It's all right. And Micah, you see him put down the speech, and he just starts speaking from the heart. And Micah, that baby, told the story of that police officer putting that gun in his mouth. And he talked about how he was driving down. He said, instead of giving me a ticket, he decided to teach me a lesson. And he put the gun in my mouth. And I didn't know the gun wasn't loaded until he pulled the trigger. He said, now, I was the lucky one. I'm here telling my story. And I have parents who could get me out of trouble. And he went on to tell a story, and then he named the man. He named the guy. He named the cop. And he said, I'm not afraid anymore. And you can see, because Vi and Hollywood didn't know Ralph. And remember, Charlie they didn't tell anybody that part of the story. Now, he told Nova, because remember, Nova was the one saying, you need to let your mother know what happened. You need to tell your mother what really happened. Because remember, that's when Micah was being very angry, and they thought they understood why he was angry, but they really didn't know the whole story. And he is telling his story, and he's talking about how, when we start building jails, he said jails don't make money because they empty. They make money because you got to fill them. And honey, when I tell y'all he gave it to him like his mama gave it to him last week at that community meeting. And that thing brought tears in my eyes when he was telling his story and how brave he was. And it made me forgive Michael for being a little smart ass these last couple of weeks and getting smart with his mama and his daddy. But he even gave both parents props. And he gave his father props too in his speech. And it just took a lot for him to just share that story. And like I said, it brought tears to my eyes. And then he looks up, and his friends did show up. And they put up their fist, and Nova put up her fist. And, everybody was just riled up after that. And we see later on in the episode that the video went viral. It had something like 300,000 hits in like 20 minutes. And, it's all over the news. And he said, but it may not be enough. And Charlie told him, she said, you know what? It might not be enough. She said, but what you did and what you put out there, she said, you can't, it's what's the word? What are the words I'm looking for? Basically, you should be proud of that. Like, sometimes in a movement, you don't always win. She said, but you're bringing so much attention, and you're bringing so much knowledge to the situation that you should be proud of yourself no matter how this turns out. She said, it might be too late for St. Joe's. But in the meantime and in between time, we're going to fight. And you just saw how proud she was of him. You know what I mean? It was just a really proud moment for all of them. Vi is having a great time as well. She was at the rally, and she was, like I said, her and Hollywood was shocked at what they found out about Micah. But of course, you saw all the love on her face, and for what he did, and proud of him. So we see her talking to her business partner. They're going through properties because she's opening up her pie shop, and he says, how you doing? He was like, thank you for letting me know about the hospital. I know it scared you, but I appreciate you for being honest with me about it. And she said, no problem. Basically, that was our deal, and I'm going to stick by my deal. So he says, I know all of these pieces. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but we got momentum right now, with the interview and everything. He said, I just want to go ahead and get this party started. He said, I have a piece of property I want you to look at where you may feel a little bit more at home. And they were sitting in the High Yellow. I remember the name again. And I knew he was talking about the High Yellow when he said it. And she said, well, where is it? Tell me, show me. He said, we sitting in it. She said, excuse me? He said, yeah. He said, whatever her boss's name was, the little asshole. He said, he's retiring and he just put it on the market. She said, I didn't even know. He said, yeah, he just went on the market. He said, so, what's up? And she starts telling her story about how she was 40 years old, applying for a job to be a waitress, and how it may not have been much to some people, but it gave her a sense of independence. Because remember, she had that abusive relationship, so I'm thinking this was after her and her husband split, and remember how he held that house over her head and all that other stuff from her story. And you just see her looking around, and he's like, so what do you want to do? And she's really thinking about it. Like, she's like, wow. So you can see that she's really contemplating owning the High Yellow. So then we get into the bullshit. I'm sorry, y'all. We see Ralph Angel and Darla and Blue. And Blue was up to that old bullshit he was doing before, where he's setting up scenarios where he want Ralph Angel and Darla to do stuff together. So he done bought some kit putting together the ocean type thing. One of them little kits you used to put together when you were kids. And she said she bought it. She said, yeah. She said, this is all the rage amongst his friends, but he said we gotta we gotta work on it together. And so, you see Darla, and again they have a moment. And she said, he said, are you good, Darla? She said, I'm good. She said, what about you? He said, I'm good. She said, Ralph Angel, Blue told me she's nice. And he was like, what? He said, Tran, that's her name, right? Blue told me she's really nice, and she's teaching him all about fish and everything. And he said, yeah, well, she works down there, and she's a really nice person. He said, but we're not together anymore. He said, I told her I just had too much going on right now, that me and her, we just not together right now. And he tells her, he said, I really respect how you've been able to stay sober, with everything going on, with all the hits you've taken, that you staying straight. I really respect that. So you see them, y'all, you see that invisible magnet starting to pull them back together. And Blue comes running in and says, did mom tell you we got to put this together, Pop? And you see them putting together, starting to put the kit together and everything. And they back to that old family shit. It's going to be a matter of time before they scratching each other's itches. Is that it? Scratching his itches? Fuck it, y'all know what I mean. So then, Charlie with Mama Boudreaux, Sister Boudreaux, whoever she is. And Charlie says, look, it's time for us to, she said, I got a plan, but I need you to share with me the books, the real books. And she said, assuming that there are 2 sets of books, why would I do that? Because that wouldn't just make him look bad, that would make the whole company look bad. And that defeats the purpose of me trying to take over a company. Why would I want to damage a company I'm trying to take over? And Charlie said, that's true. And that could very well happen. She said, but the ends will outweigh the means. She said, because 1, we'll get rid of the jail. 2, we'll tarnish your brother with any of his high-powered friends, in the legislature, because they're not going to want to be nowhere close to all of his mess and all his crimes and misdemeanors. She was like, so yeah, you're right. It might tarnish the class temporarily, But in the larger scale, it'll get us what we want. So she said, well, if you do that, I'm going to need something from you. I'm going to need you to sign over some shares to me. And Charlie was like, why would I do that? She said, because it can't come from you. She said, it has to look like it's coming from somewhere else. Because if it comes from you, if you being so active in trying to stop the jail from coming, the prison from coming, and you being so active in trying to shut that down, if it comes from your direction, or it looks like it's coming from your direction, then it'll be tainted and nobody will pay attention because they'll think that, oh, it's just coming from her, she lying, or she just embellishing. She said, but if you signed over your shares to me, it'll look like you'll no longer have a stake in what's going on, and your hands will be clean. But I need that power. And in my mind, I was like, checkmate. Because that's what Charlie fucking wanted. I felt like Charlie knew what she was doing. Like, it looked like Charlie was hesitant and sort of nervous about it. But I feel like, because Charlie never fucking wanted the company. She just wanted enough leverage. She just wanted to get in to get enough leverage to get what she wanted back. So then she says, I tell you what. If I do that, then I want my meal back. So Mama Boudreaux says, well, if I give you the meal back, I'm going to need more shares. And I think she went up to 10%, I think. So again, Charlie hesitates and acts like this is so hard for her and so much. She says, if I give you 10%, then you're going to have to give me more, a lot more. Next thing you know, we see Mr. Prosper getting ready to leave. His daughter's in town. He's all packed up. They saying their goodbyes. Charlie says, Mr. Prosper, I got something I need something I need to show you. She takes Mr. Prosper to his house, gives him the keys and the deed. So not only does he have his house back, now he owns the land, which is something he didn't own before, which was the reason why he got put off of it in the first place. So whatever deal with the devil that Charlie has made, not only did she get her meal back, she got Queen Sugar meal back, but she also got this land. And who knows whatever else she made in the deal, because they didn't really tell no more about what happened with the deal. And of course, that part probably could have made me cry, but it didn't. But Mr. Prosper, of course, is just as happy as he can be. And he's all crying, and everybody's happy. He got his house back and the land. And she gave him the deed free and clear. She signed everything over to him. So Prosper ain't going nowhere. So we see Nova putting her finishing touches on her book, the title page with her name, and you see her sort of hesitating a little bit, but then she calls her publisher and says it's done. And her publisher is like, are you sure? She said, yeah, I'm sure. And she sends it over. And then you see her go over to her wall, her wall where she was keeping her notes. Because, of course, now we're sitting here like, well, what the fuck did she put in that book? And this is what I was saying about it's opening the door for next season. So we got a couple of storylines that are carrying us over into next season. What else was in that deal that Charlie made with Mama Boudreaux? What the hell is in Nova's book, and how is that going to impact the family when it comes out? Vi's shop, yeah, that's not an explosive storyline, but it's a storyline. So anyway, we start seeing the notes that Nova, because she starts taking her notes down after she sends the book, she goes over to her wall to start taking her notes down. So we start seeing the stuff on her wall. She got Ralph Angel's paternity. That ain't your story to tell. Him going to jail. Of course, the fishing rod, the bonfire, her dating a married man, too sweet, too short, whatever that boy's name was, 2 Chainz, I don't know. But all those different things that we've seen over the last couple of seasons, everything that has come up is in the book. Or at least on her board. I can't say it made it into the book, but it's on the board. And then, of course, she has up there Charlie, and it has our story. Because, their situation is very complicated as well, as far as their father, Nova's mother, Charlie's mother, and how that whole situation went down, right? That was your story to tell. You talking about Ralph Angel's paternity situation and his incarceration. I don't know. It's just gonna be some bull. It's gonna be some shit next season with that. Um, if she put on the book for my family and for our healing, you ain't trying to heal nothing. You picking at them scabs, but that's my opinion. I'm gonna leave it there. So then we see Charlie had a meeting with Landry, and he says, it's very interesting. All these things that are coming out about me. And Charlie was like, "Oh, really? Surprise." And he kind of looks at her and she said, "Your little high-powered friends down at the state legislature not taking your calls?" And he kind of gave her that look like, "You bitch." Like, And he said, "You in business with a woman who would stab her own brother in the back. So what do you think she'd do to you?" And Charlie said, He said, "You should have stuck with the devil you knew." The devil you knew, right? Charlie looked at him. Charlie said, "I'm a strong black woman and I've had to fight the devil one way or the other my whole life. So what's the difference between the devil I know, the devil I don't know? I will prevail. I'll fight you all." So I don't know what deal she made, but she seems to be very confident that the deal she made is going to is covered. That she's got what she wants and she's covered. Then we have a very curious scene with the police at Ralph Angel's house. And it's the cop from the rally, the cop that's trying to get the prison built. And I guess they're trying to intimidate the family however they can. And of course, Ralph Angel is the weakest link because he's on parole. And they're really the only one that they can really kind of fuck with like that. And so they said, so Ralph Angel was like, "What's wrong, officers? My son is in the car. Can you turn your lights down?" Because they got their lights flashing in front of the house and everything. And Ralph Angel had pulled up, so Blue was in the car. So the police officer, it was him, and it was another guy. He said, "Ralph Angel, why don't you come on down? We need to have a talk with you." And you see Ralph Angel kind of looking. Ralph Angel said, "You got a warrant?" He said, I think he might have said what it's about first, but then he was like, "You got a warrant?" So then the police officer says, "You ain't off parole yet, probation yet." He said, basically he threatened him. It sure would be a, horrible thing to get that, to have that situation, get messed up. He said, he said, I can arrest you for, what did he say, kicking a can or some bullshit. He was like, "So get in the car and let's go." So Ralph Angel says, "I got cameras all around this house. They recorded when y'all pulled up, and they're going to record that I left with y'all." And he ain't say no more. And they looked at each other, got in the car, and pulled off. Now, I'm sure it's not the end of that, but I just found that very curious because I feel like that was in response to Micah naming the police officer, because that was the other thing that we saw, that once Micah dropped the name of that police officer, everybody and their cousin started calling, talking about complaints and calling in complaints about what that police officer had done to them. So it just kept coming. It just kept coming. All right. Last but not least, the part that had me boo-hooing for about 10 minutes. We see Hollywood has a surprise for Vi. He said, she got her hands covered, her eyes, and he was like, "Okay, now," he said, "Don't open, don't peek, don't peek." He said, "Now remember, when you open your eyes, everything you see belongs to you." And I knew what it was when he said it. I said, he done bought her the damn high yellow. And that's exactly what it was. As soon as she opened her eyes, they were standing in the high yellow. And she was like, "How did you know?" He said, "It went on the market a few days ago." She was like, "Oh my goodness." He said, "I knew you wanted it." He said, "This is yours. It's all yours." And my only concern is, how is that going to affect her business relationship? Because I thought part of their deal was that her profits would be offset by the fact that he was going to finance the store. So I'm wondering, I'm happy for Vi, and I ain't trying to think too deep into it, but that was just the first thing that popped in my head was, okay, that's great that he bought it for her, but I'm just wondering how that will affect the long term. So then we see all the family show up at Vi and Hollywood's house. And they were supposed to be having a cookout for the rally, like a little celebration for the rally doing so well and everything. But everybody, it's funny because everybody shows up at the same time and they ain't dressed for no cookout. But they are dressed nice. They're not dressed for church, but they're dressed like if you were going to go to a get together at somebody's house that you like Thanksgiving dinner. You know what I mean? Like your Thanksgiving dinner, you wear your comfortable clothes because you know you're going to be eating, but you don't necessarily wear jeans, right? Well, at least my Thanksgiving dinner. So, but the family is there. It's all of the family and then Mr. Prosper. The immediate family and then Mr. Prosper. And they're like, what's going on? Like, this look real fancy for a cookout. You know what I mean? Like, this look like it's a little bit more than, for a cookout. And they're looking around like, what is going on here? Like, what in the world? I thought we were here to celebrate. And maybe they never said cookout. Let me not say that. But they were like, I thought we were going to celebrate, the rally. So as they're walking up, the pastor comes out and he says, oh, good, everybody's here. Please have a seat. And Vi and Hollywood come out. Vi got on her wedding dress with her hair coiffed, with her wig coiffed. And Hollywood got on his white suit, honey. And they read their vows to... Let me tell y'all something. Vi said... She said a lot, but one of the things that she said, we are a perfect match for each other. In the parts where I am broken, she said, my jagged ends fit perfectly into yours. Honey, I was done after that. I said, I don't give a fuck what else they say. That was perfect, and I'm going to steal it. So anybody who ever comes to my wedding will know what I'm going to say because I'm stealing that. That thing was perfect. Do you hear me? And of course, Hollywood, he wrote his down. But his was just as sweet. He was talking about the day that he met her. He said, you didn't know this. He said, but the day that we met, I was feeling mighty low. I was having a bad day. He said, and earlier that day I was out fishing and I had fallen into a bush of African violets. And later on that day I went to the High Yellow and I met a waitress who introduced herself as Violet and said, what can I do to make you happy? Y'all, I wasn't no more good. And so it was just perfect. It was beautiful. It was perfect. Vi looked gorgeous. Hollywood looked fine, slick. Y'all know I love me some Hollywood. I love Hollywood. And that's how it ended, their reception. Because the reception, they had invited everybody. So by the time they got to the reception, it was a full house. Y'all know Hollywood and Vi love to have a party. And they are dancing and everybody's having a good time and everybody's dancing. It's just a good moment. And I didn't mean to talk this long, y'all, but it was so good. I cannot wait till season 4, but at least I got Greenleaf to get me through. Y'all let me know what y'all think in them comments.